Legacy podcast. My name is Olisya Grant, co-founder of The Matrix Legacy. We are back for episode number 11, and I've got beyond a special guest for this episode. There is no Olisya Grant without this incredible superwoman. I am honored to have my mother here to join us today, and this lady has been through hell and back, and so to see the woman that she is today is so inspiring to me, and it's the source of fuel that I have to keep going, and everything I do is just to make sure that I can give back to her in the greatest ways that even she can't imagine. So this is very, very special to me. This is a very monumental podcast, and I'm so excited that we're able to do this together. What I would like to do is, because I know your journey and because I know what you've been through, I feel like the value that our listeners and our audience are going to be able to get from this is that regardless of what you've been through, there's always a way to shift it and come out incredible on the other end, and you are an exact example of that. There's a quote that I love. I'm not sure who it's by, but it literally says, if you're going through hell, why would you stop there? Like, keep going, get out. Why would you want to stay in hell? And I feel like you just embody everything that is. So what I want to do is I want to just open this up to you. I would like to know, do you view your trials and your tribulations up to this point as an obstacle that you continuously battle to get over? Or are you using it now as a tool to fuel everything that you have going on in your life? I'm going to just open it up to you. Go right ahead, Mama.
Well, first of all, hey, your dad and I are so proud of you. You're doing an awesome job. Platform, I always said, use your superpowers for good and good will come out of it, right? Yeah, I've been through racism, abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, even to the point of rape, that hardcore that I've been through. But I always made sure that in life, I need a reason to keep going forward, because I wouldn't be going through this for no reason. Now, in my younger days, yes, it just felt like, oh my God, this is a never ending thing. I go from one trouble to another, to another, to another. And it just, a struggle. Life felt like a struggle. And I did. I'll be honest, I hit rock bottom at some point where I just feel like my existence wasn't needed because too much abuse had come my way. But by the time I got to a certain age, I realized, why am I putting up with this? I have the right to be happy. I have the right. Why am I not happy? And it was just the little things as I watched you guys get older and move on. And it occurred to me I never was taking care of my mental state, myself, because I push it all back. And I don't think it was a bad thing that I went through all these things, because I felt it helped me be a better mother, a better wife. And by the time I was at an appropriate age to understand myself, it pushed me to be a better person, because I knew I didn't want to be those outside people, and I didn't want those outside people to constantly rule my life. So it built me, and so there was a reason.
Yeah. And so this is the show where we create a blueprint for success. We look for ways to create generational wealth, and we break those chains of a poverty mindset. And just based on the things that you've said, all of those trials that you went through could have easily put you into a mindset that says, I'm not worth it. I can't do it. This isn't for me. I deserve to just coast through the rest of my life because I've been through it. So what do you think it is? Is it just children? Is it something inside of you? Where do you go to find that motivation and say, I'm not the victim in this situation. I'm not the one who's going to get the short end of the stick on this. This is my life. I want to take control of it. Where do you go to find that and keep pushing through?
You know what? It's deep inside everybody, but they've got to find, like you say, their mentor.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. By 18 I had you, but I knew there was a reason I was having you, and there was that deep side voice and intuition that kept saying, keep going. And after you were born, it was like, okay, my existence. The father of the child is giving me a hard time. I dread the thought of going back home, but what do I need to do? And every time I looked at you, I said, no, I got to do this for her. What is best for her? What situation to keep her from being where I am at this time do I need to do to keep going? And that's why I said, okay, suck it up, go back home. And I do what I need to do, went to school, worked, whatever I needed to do. And my thing was, I'm going to be her mommy, I'm going to be her daddy, I'm going to be her everything to get her where she needed. And I always joke with your father and say, you know what? He was God sent. Because when everything was beginning to calm down in my life and I was getting ready for the next step, he came into it. And it actually, that voice again, that intuition, what I learned later in life, it's called spirits, spiritual voices, that we each have a spirit guide that leads you through life. And I believe their voices were always loud. And no matter, yes, they couldn't protect me in my younger years, but they've helped me thrive through my years of just pushing forward. And honestly, I'm glad I listened to those intuitions because it's led me to a good life where I finally am at a beautiful peace, you know? And a lot of people can't say that at this age after being through what I've been through. They're still unhappy, they're still miserable, they're unsure. But I can genuinely say at 44, I am extremely happy and at peace. And that's where I get that motivation, because there is something deep in everybody. They just have to hear that little hum. Some people don't hear it because they allow that negativity to be so loud, and it feels good to them, you know, because it feels normal. And that's what I wanted to stop. Troubles in your life should never feel normal at all.
That's it.
You
And
know?
I think that ties exactly into everything I've been talking about, because in order to get through whatever you're going through, you have to find something bigger than yourself. At the end of the day, it wasn't about you. You said, yes, I've been through this, but how do I use this in order to help other people never go through this? This is my journey, so how am I going to make sure that my children, my legacy is not the trauma that I've been through? And that's why I admire you so much, because there's so many people who have been through maybe a quarter of what you've gone through. That's not to take away from anybody, because everybody's experiences are going to impact them in different ways, absolutely. But what I'm saying is, people will take those stories and say, this is why my life is not where it should be. And they don't take a step back and say, okay, I didn't ask for this, but this is the hand I was dealt. So what am I going to do with it? Am I going to sit in the darkness, or am I going to hang on to that little speck of light, whatever it looks like, that's bigger than me? And in your case, that was your children. So I can do better than what I've come from. How do I grow from what I've come from? And I think that's what's so beautiful about your story. And just on the topic of noise, because you said it's really hard to block out what's going on around you and really just focus on that light. So you went through racism and unsupportive parents and abusive spouse or partners, things like that. When people are telling you in blatant terms that you're not enough and you're not worthy and whatever visions you have are not gonna work, how it's really tough to think about, especially when it's as blunt as the way that you've heard it. A lot of us deal with it indirectly. Like, people just won't support us. They won't purchase what we're selling, or they won't share our content, or they won't, show up at our launches. Exactly.
For it to bluntly be told to you, because of you went down this road and went down that road, that's why you're this and that. You always second guess what you do, how you do it. And at some point, you have to look at it and go, but you're not seeing my vision. You don't see that picture in my head. And no matter how you can explain to an individual, what's in your head, they can never, ever have the full portrait of what you're seeing. I always feel it's up to you to make that come true, because they're never going to. They're never going to see it. And it's up to the individual to say, you know what, okay, I'm going to prove to you. Let me do the painting. and then you'll see what I'm talking about. And that's basically what it is. That was how my life is. Let me do my painting, and I'll show you that what I felt comfortable doing and the colors I used and the contrast I used, it'll come out and you'll see the beautiful portrait that I did. It may take years to show them, but eventually it does. And that's how I saw you and your siblings. You were my canvas. And I painted and I painted and I knew what colors to use for each and every one of you. And now look at the product. Look at the whole portrait. Now you're an individual who is out there helping others. So whatever paint and color contrast I was using and what vision I had, they couldn't see it, but I saw it. Your dad saw it. We knew what we were doing.
That's so key. That's so key because what happens is we see in our head exactly what we're called to do in this life. But as soon as we project that message and we tell people this is what I want to do, and they shoot it down, and we take their opinion in a stronger matter than we take our own vision. And so that was just such a beautiful metaphor that you used because that's it. I'm in the middle of painting my picture. You might not see what it's going to look like right now, but just wait on it. Just wait on it. And the thing is, like, you have to stop looking for validation from others. You got to take pride in yourself and say, only I know the extent of the things that I've been through, and only I know what this is going to produce. So go ahead. Yeah.
That's why your father and I always had pushed to have, when you guys had curriculars and whatever, and you had mentioned on your previous podcast about you wanting to be a musician and changing your mind. But the thing is, what we understood is, okay, this is what she's passionate about. Give her the paintbrush. Let her paint. Only she knows what she sees. We don't have your vision. You're a different individual. You're not me. And that's what a lot of parents, and especially Caribbean parents, forget, is that their child is not them, and they need to allow their children to give them the tools, give them all the tools you can. The moment they say, hey, I'm thinking of being an astronaut, okay, let's go to
go try on some spacesuits. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or I joke and say, okay, if you want to be a stripper, you could be a stripper. Okay, well, let's go take you to dance lessons. But there's a vision in the child's head. They see themselves differently how we see them. And that was my thing, is the people who abused me and hurt me and saw me in such a different and sometimes extremely negative light had no idea what was in my head, what vision I had of what my future was. And they wouldn't allow me to hear it. And that made it very confusing. Like as you get into your 18 and your 20 and they're like, okay, there you go, figure it out.
Yeah.
I didn't have tools. I didn't know. It's a good thing with you guys. We gave you the tools because we wanted you, when you hit that time and period where you're out on your own, you didn't feel confused as to who you are, what you wanted, how you wanted it. Because our opinion was our opinion and your vision is your vision.
You see, but the thing about that is you had the insight and you took your negativity and spun it into a positive. So you said, this is how I was treated by my parents growing up, so I'm going to make sure not to do this to my children. However, there's a lot of people in situations where their parents, as you had, were their biggest critic, were their biggest obstacle to get over. And those are the people that birthed you. Those are the people that should want to see you win. Those are the people who should be breathing only life into you. So what happens when the people closest to you are the most toxic and the most damaging to those visions that you have? They're ready to take that canvas and crumple it up and break it and throw it in the recycling bin because they don't see what you had. But the thing to understand there is they're coming from a broken space as well. They went through something that made them think that type of action was acceptable. But for those people who feel like, I need to tolerate it because it's coming from my parents, or I need to tolerate this toxic energy because it's coming from my friends, what do you say to that person who feels like, I got a dream, I got a vision, but I can't pursue it because the people closest to me don't support it? What do you say to those people?
what I say to them is it's hard, very hard to do, but you need to get rid of the negative people. When I hit 40 and I made a big deal about it, I was excited about being 40 and I made decisions. Because I always say by the time you hit 40, you're stuck in your ways. Sometimes you're really stuck in your ways, but you have more knowledge of what you want to do. And I made sure when I hit 40, any negative person in my life, I'm sorry, you can't come into the 40 club. And it was hard because unfortunately my mother was one and my father was another of the set of people that I had to cut off because it wasn't healthy for me. It was stopping me from being the person I know I could be. I'd second guess myself and I'd have to get that approval. Is it okay? Is it all right? Is my house good enough? Is my hair good enough? Is my weight good enough? Is my smile good enough? Are my children good enough? And it's not right. A parent should be proud regardless. And it's just one of those things, unfortunately, I didn't get. But then your father's mom, your grandmother, honest to God, she's been a godsend because I always say once you've removed all those negative people, the most amazing thing happened. I end up with so many positive, supportive people in my life. It allowed me to hear myself and believe in myself and consider that, yeah, I'm not so bad. And yeah, I got this knowledge and I've got this talent and I don't need anybody's approval anymore. I don't need to watch my language. I don't need them to count my tattoos or how many piercings I have or what color my hair is today. I don't need that approval. And I honestly wish I had that feeling the moment I became an adult. And that was a big thing. You guys don't need our approval. And you know that. You just simply go, okay, mom, dad, I'm about to take over the world. Okay, what do you need us to do?
Yeah.
That's all. That's all I need. That's the only question I have. What do you need me to do so you can conquer it?
And I think that's what stops so many people dead in their tracks. They're waiting for that approval. They're waiting for that celebration. They're waiting for somebody to say, yeah, I'm 100% behind you. Whatever you need, I got you. But here's the thing. Even if you don't have that, you have to have your own back. Nobody will have your back if you don't have your back. And once you start protecting your own self, protecting your own energy, removing those negative toxins, regardless of how close they are, that I think that term blood's thicker than water is what really messes people up in the head, because because you're related to somebody does not mean you need to tolerate damaging negative behavior. And the reason for that is because every single one of us is called here to do something in this world. We have some type of output to give. We've got some message to deliver. Every single one of us has a purpose. But if we're so busy consuming other people's opinions and taking on other people's beliefs about how we should live our own lives, we rob ourselves and we rob the universe at this point of the gift that we're called here to share. And so what I think is really beautiful is you went through some really dark times living in what was it, the only black family in the entire, was it city?
Town.
In the entire town in Red Deer, Alberta. So racism levels were absolutely through the roof. And
oh my God.
You could either have chosen to conform and give up and say, okay, fine, I'm going to just hide my blackness because it's not accepted. But what you've done is you flipped it around and you said, as a child, I was robbed of the opportunity to enjoy the beauty of my blackness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this into a podcast that can empower other children with the messages that I wish that I heard when I was that age, when I was going through those things, that just because I'm the minority, that doesn't mean I'm any less. And I don't need to blend in. It's okay to stand out. Just building off of that, I really want to talk about one of the podcasts that you've been a busy little lady. You've been a busy little lady. But one of the things I'm most excited about is the podcast you released for empowering Black children. So can you just explain for those who don't know, what's the name of the podcast, where can they find it, and what's the idea and the vision behind it? Because it's incredible.
Okay. It's called Storytime with Auntie. And what I do is I find books that have Black children in it or have been written by a Black author. And it's different stories. Some about their hair, their color of their skin, and sometimes just a regular family story. And I also do some research and I find out about Canadian Black history because most of the Black history we learn here in Canada is based in the US. And we need to learn some that's here in Canada. So when I was raising you guys, I couldn't find one book that had a Black child in it. To find a Black doll for you guys, I had to go to another city. And it always bothered me that the only time we would learn about Black history is the shortest month of the year. And then we couldn't figure out where else can I learn about Black history. And by the time all of that came out, you guys were teenagers. But now I have nieces, nephews, and hopefully grandchildren coming. And I feel they should know about their Canadian Black history, not just about Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks, because it was only just a few years ago I found out that we had a Rosa Parks of our own named Viola Desmond. And the thing is, what really triggered me to think of all this too is when I read Charlemagne the God's book about anxiety. I never in my life did I really think that it was PTSD I would be suffering from in life due to racism. And it's something that we take as a norm, and it's something that should never have been accepted. And the trauma that we face, because it's bullying we face, but everybody separates racism and bullying as two separate things. And it's not. Because when somebody is racist, especially against a child, it is the child's being bullied. And it shuts a child down. And when parents don't have any resource, like when a child comes home and they still don't have anything they can relate to, because my family, I didn't really have cousins or grandparents or anything growing up around me. It was very difficult because then I just felt like I'm some sort of alien. Because there's no dolls that look like me. There's nobody in books. There's nobody on the TV shows. And every store I go to, not one person looked like me except for the people that were in my household. With you guys, we made sure we kept family around you. We tried to get you to your cultural events because every single day you had to go through the whole life of looking at it and going, okay, I don't look like these people. My hair's never like them. It's different. And they ask me all these questions and it's an everyday thing. And at least you guys had that little bubble or little island where you knew I'm not an alien. It's just I live in an area where there's not enough of me. Now, with having the internet, the world's gotten a bit smaller and the way to find this type of information is bigger now. But the thing is, again, still parents are still at a loss as where to find this stuff. So why not create a podcast telling a Black little girl and a little boy that your hair is absolutely phenomenal. You are of nature. You are of beauty. And this is something I want to place in these children, that they know that a Black auntie or grandmother figure feels they are absolutely beautiful. There are so many people within their country that are doing amazing things, and that there are books that talk about how beautiful their hair is and let them love themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think this is what's so important, because as we speak about creating generational wealth, sometimes people just think that means money, and it doesn't. Because here's the thing, you have 44 years of life experience. You've been through some things that people will never experience in their lifetime. But what you're doing by creating a podcast based off of the things that you've been through is you've put it into a package where generations to come can check back in and say, wait a second, I am beautiful. Wait a second, that is something we learned, because we don't have to go through everything my grandmother went through, because she left the blueprint for us. She left the clues. She showed us and she told us exactly what it's going to take. And so that's the whole idea of this podcast in general, was just especially in our community, whenever we find any type of success, whenever we have any type of breakthrough, we are so conditioned to just hoard it and tap into that selfish side of ourselves that says, I need to hold on to this because there's not enough for me and my family. I can't give it away. But what we're realizing as we grow and we evolve is that the more you give away, the more that you receive. And as soon as you open up and as soon as you become vulnerable and you share the stories that you have, there's so many people in the world that are feeling alone right now. And when they hear your story, they're like, wait, I'm not the only one. I can come out on the other side of this. I'm not doomed. It's my choice what I want to do with my life. And that's why I'm so excited to have you on this call, because honestly, everything I've done up until this point is literally inspired by you. And I'm not just saying that because we're on the, you know what I'm saying? Like that's really how I feel. And that's the piece that's beyond me. I want to leave something that outlasts me, but I also want to leave something for you specifically because you've left so much for me. And so for those of you who are just hearing for the first time about this podcast, it's absolutely incredible. Whether you have children or not, I'll listen in on this podcast because there's affirmations in there. There's little bits of knowledge that I never even heard of before. So if you have any little children in your life, or if you're just looking for some Black Canadian history, this is definitely a podcast that you're going to want to tune into. You're on Instagram at Storytime with Auntie.
Storytime with Auntie. Auntie with a Y, not an I-E.
And so I'll put all that information in the description box. I think she's got a website as well, so I'll throw that in there. And for anybody who wants to reach out, are they able to send you any direct messages, anything like that?
Again, storytimewithauntie@gmail.com. That's where they can reach me. And also for the second podcast, it's Tea with Mama G, who I do with your sister T. Anybody who is just wanting to listen to life advice. And it's a good laugh too. Mother-daughter conversations. So even with parents with teenagers, they can know how to talk to their kids, because a lot of times we don't talk to our kids, like a lot of parents don't talk to their kids like human beings, And again, this is part of the blueprint, because you need to feel comfortable to talk to them about sex, relationships, drugs, money, all these things you need to feel comfortable with your children to talk about, because guess what, parents? We're not immortal. And our kids need to learn how to survive without us, So there is Tea with Mama G, and it's a blast. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Anchor. We're there. We're even on Facebook with Tea with Mama G. Sometimes we got a little few sayings, and this week is really funny. So
killing the game. She's absolutely out here on the field playing the game. As I've said, those are the people who you want to listen into, the people who are really out there doing the work, the people who've really been through the things that they're talking about. And so this is what this podcast is about. If you want an extension of that, you can tune into either one of those podcasts. As I said, all the details will be in the description. I just want to take a minute just to say thank you so much for not only your time, but the value that you've added, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to be able to relate to this and who are going to be able to take a look on their lives, take inventory, as I always say, and say, okay, just because this person is connected by blood and just because I've been through all of this, I don't need to be shackled to that. I am the CEO of my life. I get to create my own blueprint. I am in charge of this. Not what I've been through, not who's talking negatively about me. It's up to me. It's in my hands. And I think that's essentially the building block of the day. Is your life is yours. Don't give it away to anybody else just because you have a moment of weakness. Dig through, find that little speck of light and hang on to it. Paint your picture. As my mother said, somebody might not understand what it's going to look like at the end, but you already see it. So just continue building, continue creating, and it doesn't matter what obstacles are in your way as long as you know where you're going. That's exactly how you will get there. So thank you, Mama, for tuning into this call, and thank you for all the listeners. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, comment, share this with a friend if you found any value. We will be here next weekend with another building block for success. Until next time, let's build a legacy.